Business Growth Talks podcast is created and hosted by Mark Haywood. In this show, we talk about how to grow a business in the growth stage. The growth stage is often marked by rapid developments, increased revenue, and an escalating customer base. In each episode, we talk to entrepreneurs and business owners who have grown businesses, and we cover topics like scaling processes, market expansion, financial management, human resource and talent development, and customer retention. If you are looking for actionable advice, tips, and techniques on how to grow, run and build your business, this is the podcast for you.
Today, we have Karen Ullerup, who is the CEO of Beyond Culture Plateau, which is a business growth consultancy. Karen helps small business owners add $500,000 to revenue in 12 months with generating more clients, close more sales, and increase revenue and profitability. Karen has a revolutionary business assessment software which will pinpoint areas of impact in your business. Karen specializes in sales and marketing for business owners. Karen shares the flaws in marketing which most small businesses owners do. Karen is based in Connecticut, USA. If you're enjoying this content, then please do consider subscribing, and you won't miss an episode. Also, you can learn more about the show on businessgrowthtalks.com. Hello, Karen. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am really good. Thank you so much for joining me today. I asked you on the show because I saw your business model fitting in complete alignment to the show. So you're all about growing small businesses and making the most of their business. The show is aimed towards business and entrepreneurs who are looking to grow and scale their business. So I thought it would be a perfect fit. So thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So the first question I ask all of my guests is, what does a business mindset mean to you?
A business mindset to me is a person that's always thinking, always making goals, figuring out ways to get things accomplished, and making plans. And the wheels are always turning in the background. You're always trying to figure out how to make things successful. You're always trying to figure out how to improve things and making end goals for them. So just a mindset, you don't really turn it off.
And that's interesting you say about goals, because we do talk about goals on the show, and they're obviously so important. My personal strategy is in December, January, I plan my goals for the next year, and then I have a 6 month, usually in July, I have a stop point and think about what I've achieved and where I've moved forward from, and then do the second half of the year. What for you is the most important thing about goal setting for you and for your clients?
So for me, goals are exactly that. They're your goals for the year. And then I break it down into, so there's a year-long goals, and then I would break it down into quarterly increments. And then from there, I break it down into weekly goals, and sometimes move it backwards into daily goals for the team's KPIs and such like that.
Yeah.
What gets measured gets attained. So if you're never getting on the scale, for instance, and you're like, I think I'm losing weight, not really sure, but it's not really resonated in your mind, right? If you're just wearing sweatpants every day, you may not notice that extra 5 pounds and you're not measuring it. So same in business, right? If you may not see the little intricacies of the business and the blips up and down. So you really need to make sure that you're making a goal and making the strategic steps to get there.
So do you work from the end of year back? Do you reverse engineer where you want to be at the end of, in this situation, at the end of 2024, we're planning for next year, and work backwards? Or how do you work out that goal for a client?
So that's a great question. With a client, when we do the planning, the first question I usually ask a client is, where do you want to be in 5 years?
Okay.
So then you talk about 5 years, then you break it backwards. And it's just a bit of reverse engineering. And then you come up with the 1-year goal to get to the 5-year goal. And then in order to get to that 1-year goal, okay, let's break that down. Is it a ramp up that you have to get, a certain amount of that in the first quarter, a certain amount in the second quarter, and then the third quarter, that's a little bit higher. So you're looking at it that way. And then you're saying, okay, so in order to hit these goals from a financial standpoint, we need to hit these metrics on a daily basis to hit those. Then what your KPIs or key performance indicators are for your team. And then they would know what they need to hit. So everybody has a specific goal, a target, and everybody on their team is working towards that goal.
What's your goal setting look like?
So exactly the same, to be honest. So I have a 5-year goal, and then when I break that down yearly, because again, you can't start today and say, oh, $5 million. Okay, but
Mm.
you need to know how to get there. So I do the exact same thing. And then I will break my annual goal down into quarters. And then from there, I break that down into monthly, weekly, daily, and I see exactly how many things I need to do and what I need to focus my time on and where my numbers need to be to get there.
We're recording this in December 2023. How have your goals been for this year? Have you reached all of them? Are there still more to come for the end of this year?
I had a slight pivot this year because I took on an interim COO role for a company that needed my help locally. So I'm at 85% of my goals.
Great.
However,
That's
that
good.
was a strategic move. And the reason I mentioned that is because it goes to show you that sometimes you will pivot and sometimes you will make a change in your goals, saying, you know what,
Mm.
I really want to do this because it's for the greater good, or there's a reason I'm doing it. 85% based on the fact that I took the pivot is really good. And I'm happy with that. And I was happy with the strategic move that I made. As business owners, sometimes people decide, I want to bring on a new product line, or I want to do this, and it may not immediately take off, or it may have a ramp up period. So you might be not exactly where you are. That's why it's so important to strategically plan. But you know what? If you make a pivot, you make a pivot, and that's why the goal should be reviewed every quarter.
Interesting. Okay, thank you for talking about goals. Next question is, tell me one thing about your upbringing which reflects on who you are today.
That's a great question. My upbringing was, you can figure it out. So my parents weren't the coddling type to constantly be showing me. They made us really independent, and I have always been able to figure out things and figure out ways to be successful and figure out ways to get goals accomplished. Even as a little tiny kid, I was figuring things out.
And what does success mean for you?
Success for me, obviously, there's a financial piece of that where you're comfortable and you're financially independent. But success also to me means that you have a nice balance of your work and your life. And you also have a harmonious family life, and you're able to do the things that you want to do. So for me, I'm an avid fitness person. So if I'm able to do those things and balance that and make sure that I'm have my health and my family and my business, that means success. I don't think it's all tied to numbers.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. So we're going to talk about your business growth consultancy, but before we get into that, so you spent a long time as a COO and within operations side, and you worked for different companies, a few different companies. What made you transition from that COO role into setting up your own business, helping businesses grow?
In my previous role, I had taken the company from just about 5 million to 14 million in the 5 years I was with the company. And while I was growing the company, and while I was setting up all the processes and the leadership team and having everything set up, I have always believed that you should set everything up in your company to run just autonomously without you. And then when I was doing that, and I realized that was a success, and I realized that I could hand that off at that point, but I really wanted to help more businesses, not just one business, but more businesses, because I had a few acquaintances and friends. And it's funny, local restaurant owners, I'd go in the restaurant and they'd ask my opinion on things and I'd give advice, and it would really take off. And I said, you know what, I have been doing this, but I really want to do it on a larger, I want it to be my bigger focus. So.
Great. And so when I was doing the research on you, on your website, a claim, and I want you to talk me through this. You say that you can easily double profits in less than 3 minutes. How do you do that?
So what I will explain about that is that's the power of compounding. So compounding is you're not going to have one thing that's going to change your entire business and double your profits most likely in 3 minutes. But if you're looking at the small incremental things and ways that you can improve your business, you can easily find how you can double the profits in your business in 3 minutes. So it's really looking at, okay, do you have a unique marketing position? Do you have how are your leads? How buttoned up are you on your financials? And how close are you with your vendors? And what systems and processes do you have to grow? So there's a lot of different moving parts in there. But when you look at it, I go through in my assessments, the first assessment's a 12-point assessment, and then the second assessment's an entire day of 40 points digging into the business.
And so we've talked about here, and this is in essence, the bedrock of the whole show. USP, leads, financials, clients, processes, systems, and processes.
Yeah.
And we'll interweave that all the way through the conversation. But for you, you talk very much about sales and marketing being very critical for your role helping these clients of yours. What is your view about the most effective way to be able to create more leads for your clients?
Your business needs to be unique, right? You can't be just exactly like everybody else or everybody's just price shopping, right? If you're the exact same product, everybody's price shopping. So your business needs to be unique, and your business needs to solve a problem for your ideal client. So I think that's why all these weight loss medicines are so effective, right? Because they're like, wow, we'll solve your problem.
Easy.
Right. So you can imagine it's just a really good example that I can give, but you really need to help solve a problem for your ideal client. That's what your product needs to do. That's what your mission needs to do. And you have to have a good, sustainable company and good processes to follow through. But the biggest thing is be able to solve a problem for someone and be unique.
And you talked about making companies sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
What's the bedrock? What is the message that when you're trying to tell your clients that this company needs to be sustainable? Is it revenue? Is it profitability? Is it financial management? What part of it is most important?
Yes. So all of those, but it's really because you have to have every system and process when it's coming down to your marketing, your sales processes, your processes for your finance, your processes for everything in your business needs to be documented and followed by everybody in your company. And you can't scale your company if you don't have processes, right? So if you get an influx of orders, let's just say you're making coasters. And you get an influx of orders. Great. Now you need to quickly get these out because customers are going to be annoyed. In order to do that, you need to be able to bring extra people in. And how are you going to do that if you don't have the processes to do it? So there's that. And then there's also, if you can't scale you can't scale your business without having the processes, and you can't step away from your business if you don't have the processes in place to allow it to run autonomously. So that's why I said it needs to be sustainable. It needs to run without dependency on one individual person. It needs to run if new people have to come in, then you need to be able to run things exactly in the processes that you have.
And that I was talking to another guest of mine a couple of episodes, I don't think it's been released, but a couple of conversations ago, when he was talking about the documentation of processes. And actually I think he did his first draft and it took him like 4 months or something like that. And actually he knew it wasn't a complete approach, but he was like, I've got it nailed here, 3 or 4 months to do that. Actually, he found it was a 2-year project to really be able to understand the nuances of the businesses and where things were coming. And when this happens, that happens, you need to document it. And he actually spent time on an oil rig. And he was saying that in an oil rig business, there is documentation for absolutely everything from making a cup of tea to actually doing something a lot more complicated in the oil industry. How do you approach, or how do you help your clients when they're looking to be able to document, to be able to systemize and scale processes?
Yeah, I think it's really easy to go down a rabbit hole with those processes. And yeah, you can also write a process on a cup of tea. But what you want is your processes that are unique. You don't need to write a process for how to put paper in the printer. You don't need to write it. Let's hope not. And you don't need to have processes for how to unlock the door in the building. But you do need processes on, okay, this is how we go to market. This is our unique marketing position. Here's how we go to the customer. Here's the problem that we solve. Here is exactly what messaging we'd like to convey. Here's the mission of our company. Here is what our company stands for. So you can make sure that all of those things are intertwined, and then you start documenting that. And you really, honestly, if you start going from A to Z by yourself, that will take you a couple of years. But what you want to do is pick one section of the business, and it's acceptable to have different people in the business. If you have somebody running your marketing, so you have them document your marketing, you have somebody doing your sales, you can have them, then you can oversee it, work with them, and that makes it a really good way to check your processes, because a fresh set of eyes usually finds things that you can improve.
Absolutely. And so we're talking about your ideal client. So you've got I assume you've got an avatar of who your ideal client would be. So things like number of employees, revenue, or whatever it is. What for you is that client that really gets you excited to be able to help them? What are the numbers for that?
The numbers between, generally speaking, from an annual revenue standpoint, between 2 million and 10 million annually, and the employees are from 2 to about 35 employees, and not always that specific, but that's usually where the amount of employees are in there. And the companies are, like I said, established, but they are definitely looking to grow, and they have a specific mindset, and they are very serious about their business. You have to be serious, you have to be committed, and you have to, as a business owner, and your team has to really want to make the business grow. Because a lot of times I meet people who they're like, oh, I want to be a client. And then I speak to them, they're like, yeah, I really don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm like, you're not a good, they're not a good fit for me. So I'll wish them well, but they're not a good fit because they're not serious about growing their business. They're not serious about implementing the things that need to be implemented. And that's fine for them if they want to stay at the level that they are. Then I'm not a strategy person. So I'm not going to build strategies with them and coach them along if they're going to stay at the same point. Then you don't need me.
Yeah. Would you say you're a coach or a mentor?
So I think it's funny because I think I'm a little bit of everything. I do coach people along. In some cases, I will do some consulting, and then in some cases, I'm really mentoring people and just helping them out. And I think also, once you're a client and once I've worked with you, even if we're not working on a weekly basis anymore, you're still always going to have an open line to me. I probably got 5 text messages this morning from people who, 2 of whom are no longer actual clients, but they're like, oh, I need advice on something. I'm like, okay. So for me, there's not really a line there. It's just however I can help someone.
Yeah, great. Now, I thought this conversation was going to lead me along a sales and marketing route. That was when I did the research, there was a lot of detail on your website and on your profiles and things like that about sales and marketing. So the question was going to be, but the question is still true, but it's going to be phrased slightly differently. So the question was going to be like, sales and marketing is the sexy and cool stuff that everyone wants to be able to do. But asking you the question about managing financial management, being able to manage your finances, how important is that to your business?
I think it's instrumental to your business because you need to be able to manage your finances. You need to know what's going on in your business, and you also need to know how to have recurring revenue streams, which are not tied to exactly everything that you're looking at currently. I think there's a lot of missed opportunities that people aren't capturing because they're not looking at the financials and looking at it in a way of what else could we do and how could we dig into things. I feel like when I go through financials with clients, a lot of times in our initial meetings, they really don't, a lot of them don't really have a clue what their cost of goods are, and when they do, they haven't dug down into it. You're like, oh, our accountant does that. I'm like, let's dig into that a little bit. Because once you dig into it, that's where you're really going to find some low-hanging fruit, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about your business assessment software that you use, profit acceleration software. Tell me about that.
So that system I use it as a tool. You'll dig through different areas of the business, and there are 500 million algorithms in there that will help with me putting in numbers and talking through with the business owner, and it will give me results on what that would look like if we implemented things. So that's what I use it for, and it's a really good guideline. I also use it so we can make strategic plans that we can implement throughout the year, because I usually work with my clients on a year contract, but we meet every week and we have strategic plans. That whole roadmap for the year is done in the beginning. Just pretend it's January 1st every time. But that software is a really great tool and will really guide the conversation and help show the numbers, because quite frankly, I can't compute 500 million algorithms in my head.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone that can. That's why we have computers and software
That's
to
right.
do that. Is that a proprietary software? Is that something that you've bought in, or is it something you've developed?
I did not develop it. I would love to think that I could, but I did not develop it. But I do belong to a group of other strategists, and that is a software that we have uniquely to us.
Okay, amazing. Tell me about a client of yours that came to you with not necessarily a failing business, but they were really underachieving. And tell me about what you did for them. So a specific case study that you did where you were able to turn around that business and make them profitable to be able to grow.
So I had a contracting client that came to me. Although they had a decent sized business, they didn't have a website. So that was one thing. They didn't have any marketing or real sales plans or processes. I worked with them to implement, obviously, a good website and a good social media with programs and campaigns. They weren't even utilizing the data that they had. And then we implemented an ERP system so that way and CRM, so they could track exactly where their spend was, because they didn't have that either. So in implementing all these things and working with me, their business is probably just about doubled, but it's still ramping because we're still putting into the new marketing program. So I would expect them to be at triple their original size within the first 3 years, because I've only worked with them for about 7 months, and they're up 60% at this point.
Wow. And that was just, they weren't tracking anything. There was all the data they had, all the numbers they had, they just weren't tracking anything.
They didn't have processes, they couldn't grow, they didn't have marketing, they didn't have, basically they just were working off of, I'm not joking, these little handwritten things. When they showed me, I was quite surprised that they were as big as they were, based on those handwritten notes that they were giving to some bookkeeper somewhere who was billing it, maybe. But if the paper got lost.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you see those clients, and like you said before, sometimes you reject clients because they just don't have maybe the ambition or the diligence to actually to go by your plan. What for you, when you're looking at these clients, and we've talked about this, and we're going to come back to them, USP, leads, financials, clients, and processes. When you're looking at those things for these clients, how do you said the first is a very short question sort of session, and then you'll spend 2 hours with them. So that deep dive into their business, are you really investigating all of their numbers? Where are they getting their numbers from, etc.? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm investigating that, but I'm also investigating the processes, and there's a lot of that goes to the mindset of the business owner who I'm meeting with, right? So I can tell if they're not engaged in the conversation, if they think they think that I'm gonna just come in and wave a magic wand and everything's gonna happen, but they're not serious about actually implementing any of the changes. And you can tell by their attitude, and they're a little bit nonchalant, and really the first question is, where do you want to be in 5 years? And then the second question I usually ask is, do you currently have a plan to get there? And I think most people, if they're not serious about getting there, they'll say, no, but it's just going to happen. The universe is going to help me. I'm like, okay.
Really? Do people actually genuinely say that? It's just going to happen? Wow.
Yeah. I do a
Um,
good job at what I do, so they're just gonna show up. I'm like, that's not the way it works. So we would all be successful if that were the case. But there's a really, for when I'm going through an assessment and I'm speaking with a potential client, it's an interview as well, because I don't want to waste my time and I don't want to waste their time. Because if they're not serious about growing their business and doing, and you can tell there's just between the rapport with the client, it's just, you can automatically tell if they're not going to be serious about it. They're not going to, and then I will be the first person to say, I'm sorry, I can't help you.
That's great. Like I so much respect for you, because to be able to reject clients and say, look, Justin, it's just not going to work. Let's part ways before something more troublesome happens for both of us, I think is an incredibly powerful and strong message that you're actually giving your clients. And I assume that's backed up by the successes that you've had, because you can say, look, it's partly down to me, Karen, who's done this, but actually you need total engagement with the founder, the owner, the CEO, the board, whoever you're working with.
Yeah, I've had pushback from one particular person. They really were quite angry with me, actually. They said, I can't believe you're going to tell me no. I can't believe you're not going to help me. You helped this person, and I know them, and I know how well it was, and why won't you help me out? Because you don't want to be close. I said, here, listen, I will give you, I have a program as well that will go through. It's not really as detailed, and it's not as there's not a strategic plan involved in it, but it will go through my business academy, and it will go through like individual steps for the business. I said, follow this for 3 months, 6 months, and then let's meet again. And if you have implemented anything you learned, if you've implemented the things that you learned, then we can reassess at that point. Yeah, of course they didn't, but we did reassess. And they said, I learned this. And I'm like, so you crammed this into yesterday, because I can tell that you've skimmed the information and you've done none of it. But yeah, it was really funny. It was like, it reminded me of that high school kid that got the Cliff Notes and just tried to do it at the last second.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh dear. Is raising prices for a company that's been established for, I don't know, a few years, is raising prices one of the easier ways for a business to be able to grow profitability?
Is it easy? Yes. Will it grow your profitability? Yes. However, you really have to look at your market. You really have to look at your product. You have to do some research on that and see if the market warrants it. See if your product is unique enough. Do some analytics on, if we raise the price by X, how many customers would we potentially lose? And there is some math behind that. And if they balance out, then you're just still going to get to the 80% of the good, the 80% of the good customers. And then you always have this 20% of the customers that are a little bit difficult. And there is some math behind that. But honestly, I think most people think of raising prices, as far as business owners, they think of raising prices and they're like, oh, I'll just raise the price 10, 20%. I'm like, it's the small pieces in there, right? And then there's maybe raising the price, and maybe that's a 5% price raise. But you, on a small product, or you probably wouldn't even notice. It's an insignificant amount for the customer in that case. And there's other ways that you can look at that. You can do bundling, you can do services that way and add more value for your customer. So it's not always about raising prices. I do think that everybody assumes when they see my website and they said, oh, she's just going to come and raise all her prices. And it's probably one of the last things I'm going to do, depending on your business, depending on if you're in the business and you're selling something for $2 and every other product on the market is $4, then I'm probably going to suggest that you raise your prices.
And client management, account management, dealing as a delivery side, however you want to describe it, on whether it's a product or service, how do you approach the client management side of, let's say, service-based industries?
Mm-hmm. So from a service-based industry, I think you always go with, when I'm speaking with a client and I'm referring them to their client base in a service, I always say to them, you're providing a service, which is solving a problem, which is always what I say, you need to be solving a problem for your ideal client. And however, you need them, your client, to not only need this service because you're solving a problem, but you need them to have a relationship with them. They need to know who you are. They need to know that they're respected. They need to know that they're appreciated as your client. They need to know that they always have a communication line. And a lot of that is not happening with small businesses. Honestly, it's because people are spread thin and they didn't think of that. But really nurturing each relationship in a service-based industry is instrumental.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I saw something on social media which was an interesting. They were talking about client management, and the influencer said, forget about client management, focus on employees, your employees, and give them the best service, the best company, the mission, the support that they need, because they'll look after your clients. So you're, as a CEO of a business, you should be focusing more on employees, and they do the client management. What's your view on that?
So, I think it's a twofold thing. As a CEO or as a COO, I always would tell my employees my job is to make them successful. Yes, I believe that you should treat your employees correctly, and then you should focus on their success, and you should focus on making sure that they know the mission and they know. But if you don't have a focus on nurturing the client relationship, that comes down from the top. If you don't have that focus, then your employees are not going to get that from you. They're not. It needs to be a cohesive environment where everybody is focused on the same thing and everybody has the same mindset and everybody's going towards the same goals. Yes, I do feel like there's a little bit of validity to that, but you also still need to have that mindset. Otherwise, how are people following you? It's a little bit hypocritical. I'll support you, but don't really care about I don't care about the client management. I don't care about that
No,
relationship.
I suppose you're making an extreme of it. My point was that actually looking towards giving your employees the best experience being part of your company
Yeah.
is so important, because as a CEO, COO, as someone on the founder, might not be having regular conversations with delivering a service to their clients. Yes, you might have overview, you might have reports, you might get on where your clients are and what they're doing, which is super important. But I suppose the question was more not as a CEO or a founder ignoring the client, but understanding the delegation, the act of delegating tasks to your employees and nurturing those relationships is really important as a founder, because they will represent the company, they will represent the founder, the CEO, the business with the client and deliver the superb service if you're giving them the support that they need to be able to deliver it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you do need to give them the support. They need to deliver it. And one of the keys to delegation is that you need to give the support and give the trust and have the trust in your employees to make the correct decisions and to go the extra mile. And then you should be supportive, not micromanaging, not going against what they said and did. And are your employees sometimes going to make a mistake, or is they sometimes going to do things differently than you would have done them? Absolutely. But your job is still to support them and to make them feel like they are empowered to do these things.
Yes, that was where I was going. I wasn't saying we ignore the clients. It's just, okay, super. Why do the vast majority of new businesses fail in the first couple of years?
I think that they fail in the first couple of years because they are very small and they have a very narrow focus and they have very few employees, and they're not looking at the big picture. They're looking at a small section of it, and then they're focusing too much on one section and not all of the sections, and they're not looking at the overall business as a whole. And maybe they're focusing too much on marketing, but then they're not working on the sales side or the service side. I think that it's really difficult to be a small business and focus on all areas of it. And I think that's what happens. And when people start up a small business and they are, generally speaking, very short-staffed, if not doing it themselves, what happens is they are trying to do everything, and not in a planning manner. They're just really just throwing things on, and then they really burn out. I feel like they really burn out because they're like, oh no, I need to get to this. I need to get to that. I'll get to that tomorrow, and I'll get to this today. But nothing's really a good balance, and it's really difficult to be to start up and to a new business and try to figure out how to get everything done and with very few amount of resources.
Yeah. And so one of the things I was reading a book or listening to a book, and they were talking about having a runway, a financial runway. Often we talk about it on a larger scale, excuse me, with having cash in the bank. So
Yeah.
if a recession hits, that you've got enough runway to be able to survive it, to get out, to be able to then thrive in the other environment, in the change of economic environments. What's your view of cash? Because this whole sort of Grant Cardone, cash is trash sort of thing, for me, having cash in the bank can be incredibly valuable as a business owner if there are changes in the market or changes in the economy. Having some financial runway is super important. What's your views on that?
I agree that you have to look at it from you have to look at it as a business owner, you have to look at it from two different ways, right? You have to look at it from having the backing, so having cash in the bank, having reserves, and then also you need to have the cash flow, and there's a certain amount that you need to reinvest in the business.
Yeah.
Also, when you're talking about recession, you're talking about, it goes back to my statement about, you need to have a solution. Your product or service needs to provide a solution that is going for a problem that's out there. If you're providing a solution for a problem that's out there, and sometimes you need to pivot in businesses, right? You start thinking about COVID and you start thinking about how that happened, and restaurants were closed. Restaurants were closed, and there was a lot of businesses that were closed, but the ones that survived were the ones that pivoted. They said, okay, we're going to sell to go, and so your business also needs to have a business continuation plan as well. And I believe that's a really strong part of it. But I do believe that it is good to have cash reserves, but you can't be putting all the cash in and then never reinvesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And reinvesting back into the business, especially towards the early stages of it, is so important because you need to keep the company buoyant and have the right level of delegation, have the right employees, have the right softwares, have the right business processes in place. It leads me on to the next question, which is a bit of a provocative question, but is business growth easy? Are the fundamentals of whatever industry you're in, is it actually, you're like, for you, helping clients, do you find it easy?
I think it's easier for me helping clients than it is for the client.
Right.
It's always easier to stand and be able to see the big picture because I'm not working in the business. I'm not in the business. I'm looking at the business.
Yeah.
I'm overseeing it, and it's easy for me to look at the bigger picture and work with the client that way. But yeah, I do believe that I will never say that business growth is easy for a business owner. I know some business owners will say that. Those are mostly the people on Instagram who tell you they made money while they were sleeping because they smiled or something. But they will say it's easy, but I'm never going to say it's easy. It is work. It is planning. There is some work that goes into it, and you can make things sustainable, and you can make things some autonomous once you have things in place. It's a lot easier for me because I'm looking at it from a different perspective.
Yeah. And that's why we have coaches and mentors, to be able to give that different perspective. That's the whole reason we need them. Karen, what's the plan for the next 2 to 5 years?
For myself and my business, I have a plan for bringing on more clients. And then in the second year, I would like to bring in another person to work with me, and so we can service more clients. And then in the third year, a second person to come in and service clients. So they would be spending a good amount of time with me. They have some experience already, and they would be working with clients, but I would be mentoring them until they get customer facing.
So hiring is one of the most complex things I've found. It's one of the hardest things to get right, is hiring. So Do you have someone, or are you going to put an advert? Is there someone that you know that might be able to do it? Is there someone with a certain skill set that you're looking? Is it attitude? I find hiring such a complicated matter because it can go really badly wrong with the wrong person. What is the strategy for that person?
I do have two people in mind that I would like to, I'll say poach, to come for those positions. So they are obviously out in the workplace now getting more experience, but really to me, attitude is key, right? I can teach systems and processes and I can teach all of the things, but if you have the right attitude, if you have that can-do attitude, that attitude of I'm just going to figure this out. I am gonna, no matter what the issue is that people throw at me, I'm gonna figure it out. And I love to help people and help solve their problems. That's really what this position would be about for me. But I always implore, and I do have a client that owns a recruiting company. I always implore them, I'm like, please push back, push forward the candidates that have a great attitude, even if they don't have every single skill. You
Yeah.
can teach them the skill if they have a great attitude.
I hired someone previously who it was out of two people. One person that had a really good attitude but had no skills, and someone that had all the skills. When you interview them, they're just not committed, or they're just not really up for learning and developing and servicing clients. And the mistake I made was I hired the person with the skill set, not the right attitude, and it didn't work out. It worked out really badly, disrupted the business, disrupted everyone else. They wouldn't turn up for meetings. It was an absolute nightmare. And so ever since then, I've been like, because when you're doing, I don't know, you're looking at self-development, you're looking at business books, you're reading, you're hearing from influencers, and they often say hire on attitudes, not on skill set. And I think you have to go through that process of actually getting it wrong and actually seeing. So it sounds like you're already in the right place, but it just really be mindful of that, because the person with the wrong attitude, it can be so toxic for the whole business because they're not interested, they're not up for it, they're not interested to learn or be able to turn up for meetings. I think you're on the right path there, but yeah, it's hiring the wrong person can be very troublesome.
Oh, it definitely can be.
Yeah. All right, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests. They're quick fire questions. They don't need a quick fire answer. First question is, what's the best decision that you've made?
But depends if you're talking personal, because I'd probably be divorced if I didn't say marrying my husband. No, just kidding, just kidding. That is a good decision, but I truly believe the best decision that I made was my decision to start my company and help as many people as possible. I really think that helping people is my passion and it's what I'm really great at, and it's what drives me. So I think that was probably the best decision. But if my husband's listening, it was marrying him.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree. Best piece of advice you've been given?
The best piece of advice I was ever given in my life, I was 4, and I was told, always stay true to your word. If you say it, you have to follow it. You have to do it. You need to have integrity, which is a big word for a 4-year-old. And I remember it so vividly. And I remember in previous corporate experience, people saying, yeah, I know that we said we were going to do this, but we're going to go back. No, we're not going back. We said we were going to do this for the employees. We're not going to go back on it. So I remember having a little tiff about that. And they said, just because you have integrity doesn't mean we have to. I'm like,
Oh, no, really? Is that what your colleague said? Just because you've got integrity doesn't mean we have to.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I
Wow.
think this is really a good relationship from a business standpoint. But yeah, I think that was the best piece of advice, because if you think about it from everything, you're always going to do what you're saying. Then everybody, that just builds trust with everyone around you.
Yeah, 100% agree. Who's helped you most in your career?
It's really funny. I'm going to honestly say, this is going to sound really strange, but I'm going to honestly say me. It's that attitude of I have to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to, and I do lean on a lot of people and ask advice from a lot of people. And there's some people in my business group that I lean on, and Dale and Anton are really great, and I ask them a lot of questions. But if you're looking at business from an overall standpoint, honestly, it's that drive that's in you, because you can get answers from a lot of places. It's being willing to ask for help. It's being willing to look for the resources and be willing to put in the work.
Tell me about a regret that you have.
Let me think about this one. I always think that things are lessons, so it's hard for me to have to look at it as a regret, but I do regret spending too much time previously missing a lot of my life and being so tied to my corporate jobs. I missed anniversaries. I actually bailed on my honeymoon early and took a flight somewhere else, and my husband flew home by himself. Like I said, he's a really great guy. So I do regret those things, because those were like some of the times that I could not get back. I did build a great career, but from a business standpoint, I don't want to ever mislead people by saying I have a regret about this and I have a regret about that. Yeah. Is there small regrets? Yeah, but you learn from them.
Absolutely.
But
And the question that, and you've answered it very honestly, and I appreciate that. This is the toughest question out of these 6 questions, because most people that I interview start with the process of everything's a learning experience, and therefore I don't regret what happened, because I'm a sum of all of the things that I've done, all the activities. So I don't see it as a regret. But there is always someone you treated badly, you said something that didn't work out, that you thought was going to work out, and you had to do this and do that. I appreciate your honesty on answering that, and it means a lot to me that you've shared that. Yeah, it's a very hard question, because as entrepreneurs, as business owners, you're constantly you're in a constant state of flux. Things are changing, whether it's employees leaving or employees coming, or changes in the economy, or personal relationships that need to be spent time with, things like that. So it is a really hard question, and something I've challenged myself to a few times, and I've thought about it, of the things that I regret. But it is the hardest question. So thank you for being honest with me. And
to be honest, I just wanted to add one quick thing. When I meet with clients and I'm listening to them and I'm hearing how they are, it's a piece of advice that I always give them. I say, I can help you build your business. I can help you be successful. I can help you make things run autonomously without you, but I can't help you make more time. If I meet somebody who is the owner of a company and they're working 80, 100 hours a week, and I can see that's all they're doing, and they're sacrificing the rest of their life and their health. It's the first thing is, okay, let's focus on how we can get you to not do that.
Right.
Not only do I learn from my mistakes, but I always try to teach other people as well. Don't make this mistake, because really, if I could tell anybody, especially young people and business owners, the one piece of advice: you can't make more time. Figure out how to use your time to the best of your ability, but also don't spend it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I do 100% agree. What are you most proud of?
I am proud that I make an impact in various areas of my life. I'm proud that I've helped build many companies and double them, and I've helped people get more time in their life. I'm proud that I recognized an employee a while ago that was struggling and not focusing on her health, and helped her to uncover that she had a serious health issue, and now she's really healthy, and now she has a very good work-life balance as well. I'm proud of that. I'm proud that the person that couldn't get the thing off the top shelf at the supermarket yesterday, or if I saw, there's an older woman that walks here and I will give her a ride. Those are the things that I'm proud of. I'm proud that I'm this same person, that everything in my life is always trying to be of service to other people, and any way that I can make an impact, that's what makes me feel proud and what makes me happy.
Do you think helping other people can be detrimental to your own mental health?
That's a really great question because I had two people say that to me. You help others too much and you don't focus on yourself. And I said, I don't think that it's detrimental to my health. I think when you don't put any focus on yourself and you put all your focus on other people and you never focus on yourself, I think that is detrimental.
Yeah.
But I try to make that a balance, right? You can't spend 100% of your time helping other people. You also have to do self-care and make sure that you're nurturing your own relationships and your own businesses. So
Yeah, I'd agree. What does legacy mean to you?
legacy to me means that you are remembered for something that made an impact, right? So you could be remembered for a lot of different things that made an impact. Never going to have a legacy of being a professional sports player. Sorry, that ship sailed. But having a legacy of can mean a lot of different things. It can be that you have taught a lot of people to be successful. You taught a lot of people to be good people. A lot of great teachers have good legacies. So I think it's just a legacy to me is being remembered for making an impact.
I think that's fantastic. And just as a bonus question, why do you do what you do?
That's a great question. I do what I do because I really like to help people and I want to see as many small businesses succeed as possible, right? Everybody, I think this is an American thing, but Americans have this culture of we hate corporate America. I don't have that. But I do think that there's a lot of small businesses that could really use my help. That's why I do it. Candidly, I have 2 pro bono clients that are startups right now that I'm helping because that's what I love to do. So I want to do it for that reason.
Amazing. And lastly, where should people go if they want to find out more about you or your business?
They should go to my website, Beyond Culture Plateau, or they can look me up on LinkedIn, Karen. Either one of those places are great. And then you can reach out to me on my website. You can set up meetings with me. I have links, but the website's probably the best place to find me. But if it's too long, I know Beyond Culture Plateau is a pretty long title, but my name is short and Ullerup is really not common.
No, true. Just on that as an extra question. So they go to your website, they'll be able to book up meetings with you, they'll be able to arrange that. If people are looking for direct, if they've listened to this episode and they're like, I need Karen in my life, I need to be able to get her to be able to help me with my business. Do you cover, are you US only focused or would you take clients in the UK?
I would take clients in the UK. To me, it doesn't matter where somebody is located. Preferably they speak English.
Yes. Makes it a lot easier.
But yeah, it doesn't matter to me where somebody is in the world. And like I said, you can automatically you can just book appointments to speak with me. You can book the financial assessments right on my website. And there's also you can do a self-marketing assessment on the website as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Business Growth Talks. This podcast is released every Monday, so don't miss an episode by subscribing to all podcast platforms, including Apple and Spotify. Have a great day.